Hey guys, what's up? My name's Cam. This is Alex. We're part of the session team, and we're here for a new thing we're doing called the Session Tapes, where we're going to chat about what's been going on in privacy and security, and just kind of have a bit of chat, So thanks for joining us. What's on the bulletin today, Alex?
Well, there are a couple of big things that have been going on. The biggest one is the Signal hack, which I don't really know if you would call it a Signal hack per se, because Signal, let it be known, did not get hacked.
Yeah,
not
for
really.
Sure. Definitely like a pretty important nuance in the situation.
It is, but it's still a really important one, so we'll definitely go over the Signal hack. So what actually happened here? What went wrong?
The 2FA, right?
Yeah.
Twilio. How would you say it?
I don't know, man. It's
Twilio?
some fandangled freaking tech startup name.
Yeah.
Just putting some random letters together. But yeah, Twilio. So Twilio is a service that Signal uses to do like authentication, right?
Yeah.
So like send you a text message and they go, okay, so verifying your number basically, right? So Twilio had a breach, which they described it as a sophisticated phishing attack, or highly sophisticated phishing attack.
I saw those screenshots in your notes. It wasn't very sophisticated.
So
sorry if you're watching any people
Twilio
from Twilio.
People. Look, I mean, this can happen to people. Phishing is something that happens to the best of the best.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where like everyone can get phished, right?
Yeah.
Like there are some really, really sophisticated ones that go out there that are really complex and like would fool even the most cynical or skeptical
cat and mouse
person.
game. They're always getting more advanced, and we're always trying to.
Yeah. But we will put because Twilio did put like a sample of the phishing attack that happened.
Which is a bit of an F. Like I probably wouldn't have done it if I didn't have to.
I mean, like
transparency. It's probably good that
I think it's
do it.
good for the transparency, right?
Yeah.
Because people will see this and go, "Oh, yeah, I need to be more." And they even broke down like, they included in the URL that they like words like Twilio and SSO to make it seem like it was legit. And it's good for people to see that and see that it can be that sophisticated and look out for it, right?
Yeah, very true.
So that's kind of important. But anyway, so Twilio was a victim of this phishing attack. And so these hackers, which as far as I know, we still don't know who these people are.
Yeah, I'm very curious, actually. Yeah. I'll circle back around to this.
We'll get back to this. But these hackers who were these unknown, hackers.
Yeah, it could have been 4chan.
I'm really jumping into it.
He's still out there. He's still out there.
He's running around on the streets, man. Anyway, so we don't know who this was, but they get into Twilio. Twilio provides this service to Signal for authentication, right? And so from this point, the hackers had the opportunity. I think they said 1,900 Signal users were affected by this attack, right? The opportunity to try and re-register someone's Signal account using like a fake authentication message, basically.
And they picked 3, right?
There were 3 people that they
3.
targeted.
Yeah.
Lucky 3. Only one of them was actually successfully re-registered to this malicious device, right?
So presumably the other 2 had registration lock on, right?
Yeah, so Signal has this feature, registration lock, which basically protects against this exact attack, right? Where if you're trying to re-register the device, then you have to put your PIN in.
Yeah.
Your like Signal PIN.
Great feature.
Yeah, which is a great feature, but one of these people, they either had registration lock enabled or they just ignored the text message, right?
Yeah, for sure. Which is Chad move.
Yeah, which is they're just like, I don't know what that is, but they had registration
for sure.
lock, right?
Yeah.
But one of them didn't, and it was this writer from Motherboard, right?
Yeah, well, like senior staff writer who covers cybersecurity and stuff.
Yeah,
which is a pretty
and has
interesting
some pretty
target,
serious.
I think, like out of everyone that they could have, why do you think that they chose to target Lorenzo?
Well, it's hard to know when you don't know who the attacker is, right?
Yeah,
but like it seems to follow that a staff writer or a journalist, a high-profile journalist especially, is a key target for this kind of attack. And it kind of plays into this idea of attacks are and will continue to be very targeted against, specific high-value people, right?
Yeah.
And we're seeing this increasingly happen. This happened recently in Australia, and it wasn't a technical attack. This was a legal attack. But there was some climate activists in Australia who were arrested, and then they had all these crazy bail conditions put on them, where it was basically they couldn't access any device that could encrypt something. So, like if they had a Nintendo DS or something, that was, strictly speaking, that was banned. They couldn't have like a mobile phone. And the thing is, like,
rough.
the argument that people made was, well, they weren't obviously trying to stop someone from using like a PlayStation, but they don't really necessarily have the technical understanding to provide a more nuanced like condition.
Yeah,
but the
for sure.
problem
They don't
with
really
this
know.
is that it then gives them carte blanche to like be like, oh, you used a mobile phone, so you're screwed.
Yeah, not ideal.
But anyway, that comes back to this point of like, there's going to be highly targeted attacks against people, and it's really important that we have like, I guess, this concept of herd immunity, right? Like this concept where everyone is protected specifically so that it helps those highly vulnerable people be protected as well.
Yeah, for sure. I was thinking it's got to be because Lorenzo has access to a lot of other people, right? That was kind of my thinking.
Right.
And because we should mention as well that this hack didn't actually give anyone access to Lorenzo's previous
could you say?
message history. Keep it in. Keep it in. No contact information, no other peripheral information with their account, like who they had blocked or whatever.
Yeah.
Just the ability to communicate with other people as though they were Lorenzo.
Yeah.
Which is great.
It was not great that they were able to impersonate.
But it's great that they weren't able to access any previous message history. But it begs the question, who were they trying to
contact?
Yeah.
Well, I saw that Lorenzo put a tweet out that was like, "Hey, have you heard from me?"
Yeah,
during
sure.
because it was 13 hours, right?
I hope that there's more reportage on this. I hope that they sort of, because I mean, maybe that's a security issue, but I want to know.
Well, I don't know that it will be public released, but I hope that Lorenzo is able to find out.
Me too. For sure.
Because you're right. I assumed that there was some kind of person that they wanted to contact, right?
Yeah, or several, because Lorenzo would be in contact with a lot of people.
Yeah, but well, I mean, the thing is, they don't get the contacts that existed, so they would have to have someone that they think knows and trusts him, and then have their contact information, get Lorenzo's account, impersonate Lorenzo, and then try to message his people, which is really complex attack.
Sure.
And to specifically target Twilio and then go from there as well is kind of crazy.
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah,
they really knew what they were doing.
But it has to be said, like you said, Signal is set up really well to protect against this kind of thing, right? Like Signal, there's a reason that people recommend it. There's a reason it has such a good reputation.
Mm-hmm.
The message history is protected, block lists, contact lists. If registration lock was on, then this attack would be prevented completely. But here's the thing, ultimately...
There is a thing, ultimately, isn't there?
There is ultimately a thing. There are two things.
Yeah.
Firstly, Signal is best in class for this stuff, right? So if it was another app, if it was any other app, these protections wouldn't necessarily be there. And then you end up in a position where, if this was actually like Snapchat that this attack happened to, those protections wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
And Snapchat has a lot of these same vulnerabilities without the extra protections.
They should have just gone for Lorenzo's Snapchat, really.
Yeah, that would have been an easy target, right? If Lorenzo has Snapchat.
Yeah.
But so all these other services that are relying on third-party services like Twilio have this same vulnerability without the protections.
Yeah.
So when we're using all of these things, like when we're using Messenger or we're using WhatsApp or we're using Snapchat, Instagram or Skype or freaking Discord or whatever it is, this same thing, this same potential exists.
The amount of things that I have potentially misguidedly signed up for with my phone number which I've had for several years, which is attached to so many different online accounts, and in particular 2FA, for these accounts. So.
Well, everything uses phone number for 2FA right now. Like, there are other ways, like things like Authy, right, for 2FA, which ultimately are better than using a phone number, because a phone number, obviously, there's like SIM swapping attacks. And Lorenzo even said, he was like, because it should also be noted,
right?
Lorenzo is like a really technically like literate target. So
someone
as soon as
who
this
has
happened,
like a very well thought out threat model, I would imagine.
As soon as this happened, they realized that it was happening. That they realized that this text message that they got wasn't right, and they were thinking, okay, what could this be? Could it be a SIM swapping attack? They were aware of those kinds of threats, and yet still this was pulled off, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it was also interesting that they didn't have registration lock on, which I would have assumed. But also, I was talking to Harris, who is our lead Android dev here at Session. And he was saying he wasn't even aware that feature existed. So potentially there was an issue there where it hadn't really been communicated to people that was an option.
Yeah,
or potentially
right.
it was a new feature.
Well, this is the thing about when you bury these kinds of features deep in settings. How often do people... And this is a huge issue with like every platform, and especially as an issue that I know that has been faced by Facebook, right? Where you might be like, okay, you know what? We're going to take privacy seriously. We're going to add 10 new settings, and they're going to help people protect their privacy. Well, first of all, you're knocking out 90% of people who are never going to go and look at that setting.
Yeah, for sure.
And second of all, if you then in a year's time change these settings, change what they mean, change what they do, people think it's going to be set and forget. So that even those 10% of people who went and changed their setting to begin with, well, in a year's time, suddenly those settings might be redundant.
I'm not like auditing the way that I've set things up.
And not on every platform. We're on
There's a lot of platforms.
There's a lot of things that we're all
Some
logged into.
people will tell you there are many platforms. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a nice segue, though, to what's been going on with Facebook recently in terms of encryption.
So this is really interesting. So there's this case in Facebook. They were subpoenaed. There were some messages that were subpoenaed, led to felony charges for this 17-year-old girl in Nebraska for his abortion case, right?
Yeah.
Facebook says, or Meta says, I suppose.
I just still call them Facebook. I'm like, I don't respect them enough to... Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
I'm sure, in a few years' time, we'll get used to it.
Yeah. That's all they want. Anyway,
they say they didn't know what the subpoena was for, which is like
obviously
really bizarre.
Not true. If you look at their statement and look at the details of it's pretty clear that they knew. But even if they didn't, it sort of begs the question that like they sort of wanted to say, oh yeah, if we knew it was to do with this, we would never have given up this person's like personal conversations.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like every other time we did it, it was fine. But because it's related to this hot button issue that all these people are really angry about, we would never have done it if we...
Well, So this is the thing. So last year, I looked this up, in the second half of 2021 alone, they had 215,000 government requests for information.
Like globally or just in the US?
Globally, I think.
Sure, yeah.
I think.
That's still pretty obscene.
We'll put the numbers up. Yeah. But and about 70% of the time they provided information, right? So, that's like a huge amount of compliance and handing over information. And like you said, like there's just this one time
we would
that it was a hot
If only we
issue,
knew, we would have...
And they've caused all this outrage. But the thing is that they're doing this regularly. They're doing this like every single day, right? And it kind of goes hand in hand. Zuckerberg has said in the past, he's like, oh, well, and, there's this wider feeling that Facebook, as in the Facebook platform, and Meta overall as a company is moving away from this like public feed thing because no one who's going to post on a Facebook feed in 2022.
It's a pretty wild concept.
They're moving away from that and towards private chats, right? And so with that, obviously WhatsApp has end-to-end encryption, and they have end-to-end encryption for Messenger in most places, I think.
This is related to what you were saying before about like you can have these security options, but like, it's such a small group of people are going to use it. It's like most people probably don't even know that it's an option in Messenger now.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I think most people don't know. And the thing is, even when you like go to use the like secret chat in Messenger, it's like you feel like you're in a totally different place and you're not meant to normally use it. It's meant to be like, if you've got this like special conversation you have to have, because it starts like a new chat with like a same contact or whatever, right?
UI.
But they're trying to make it default. But they've been trying to make it default for 3 years now, and it hasn't happened. And Meta's been running into all these issues, right? All these issues with like technical issues, like things just break when you make it end-to-end encrypted. It makes it more complex than just being like, oh, well, this is just like a database of like information that we
and
can
this
see.
is like an issue that I can imagine you would come up with if your priority wasn't at all
actually
this
privacy.
sort of thing. You know what I mean? It's like they have all these resources. They're like, can't do it. There's no way. We're having some issues. It wasn't easy, and so we didn't do it.
Yeah, well, like they've been working on it for 3 years.
Compared to something like Signal or Session, where it's like the whole point.
Yeah, exactly. And it's from the ground up built this way. Whereas they got 10, 15 years down the track, and they were like, oh, maybe we should add
what
this.
What if we just
seems
slap
like people
it on.
care about this.
Slap
maybe
it
we
on.
should
Yeah.
Boom.
The timing, I hated the timing. I hated it. It was such it's like so obvious that it's like such transparent PR. You know what I mean? Like,
And then they tried to come out and be like, "Oh no, dude, it was just coincidence.
Yeah.
It's just this was
like, why even say it? It was literally the day afterwards.
Just say that you were motivated by this.
Yeah.
Just say it. Like,
Yeah.
it's fine for you to be motivated because that is why it's things like this are the reason that you would use end-to-end encryption, right? Like, this is a case
you're
study.
Just like the people were like, oh, you should do this, and then it's like you did it, but you were like, oh, we didn't do it because you said to. We're always going to do this. This is how the timeline lined up.
But they've been running into issues, not just technically, but also culturally, right? So the thing about Messenger and like Facebook at large is like it's for the normies, right?
Yeah.
And some of the internal research that Meta's been doing, and don't get me wrong, like this is motivated research. So like if they wanted to come to a certain conclusion, they clearly just could and be like, oh, our research indicates this. But anyway, let's just like take it on face value. And so far they've said like, you know, when this is kind of funny to me at least, but when they go to a user and say, oh, we're going to add end-to-end encryption, the first thing is users are like, they don't realize the difference between just transport encryption and end-to-end encryption.
Yeah.
And then so they went, okay, well, let's explain it to them.
Yeah.
But when they explain the difference, then the person's thought is, wait a minute, so does that mean that you've just been reading my messages this whole time? Like, this whole time you've just been... And, like, Facebook would obviously be like, no, we haven't. Like, we could have, but we haven't been.
Yeah, like, we totally could have, but trust me,
we weren't.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge issue, and they don't want to kind of, like... The thing is that at the moment, the majority of users aren't that worried about privacy. But if they suddenly shove it in their face, they're going to go,
realize,
oh,
it's
wait
like,
a minute.
You're telling me that like you have to tell 1 billion people that like, oh, actually, we could read all of your messages the whole time.
Yeah,
every
forever.
photo that you ever sent, every like text message through like Facebook Messenger, it was all just there.
Yeah.
It was all on the server.
Yeah.
Someone who works at Facebook can just... You know,
just searching.
Yeah, it's all in plain text.
Yeah, it's just completely insane.
Yeah.
So that's a huge issue, as well as the fact that, you know, end-to-end encryption decreases UX, right? User experience. So, like, for example, if you wanted to back up your messages. At the moment, if you just like get a new phone and you log into Messenger, all your messages are there for like the last forever, right? But if it was end-to-end encrypted, then that wouldn't necessarily be able to be the case. Like, you need the keys, etc. And like, obviously, those keys can't be stored by Facebook, or it's not end-to-end encrypted at that point. So like, people would need to have backups, or understand the keys, or like have some kind of PIN system, which they say that they're developing and rolling out, but people just get confused and like turned off.
It's easy to make fun of them for, you know, saying that it's too difficult to do this, or that they're running into difficulties going to cause delays. But also it's like 1 billion people, like...
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, right? But when they do it, it's going to be like a freaking cosmic leap forward for everybody in terms of like understanding what encryption is, understanding what end-to-end encryption is, its value, and then like people's like widespread understanding should improve a lot. And you know, that's on them to do, which is great. It should be a good thing for everybody.
Well, that's what like it's really easy to just like sit here and just like take shots at Facebook for different aspects of this whole situation. But also like it's really important to not lose sight of the fact that overall it's like an incredibly positive thing, even though they were pushed to do it. You know what I mean? It's like this, what you're talking about in terms of the way that it improves people's awareness and understanding of like these issues in sort of a abstract way, as well as like more specifically to do with how the tech works. But also, it's like all of these people, 1 billion plus users, now have all of these conversations that they're having every day end-to-end encrypted, which is massive. And I'm surprised that we haven't heard more pushback from law enforcement agencies and stuff like this.
Well, they have gotten some pushback, but at the same time, it's like not by default. And like we were saying before, like when things aren't by default, people just don't use it.
Yeah.
But let's jump into the last item.
So, Alex, you're a fan of reality TV shows?
You know, I actually am. I find reality TV shows are a huge guilty pleasure, but this one maybe not so much. Tell us a little bit about
I don't think that I would be too entertained by this one as a reality TV show enjoyer generally. So imagine this. Picture this. In this like theoretical scenario, all these people all over the US, they all have surveillance cameras that they've purchased, and they put them on their door, and it just constantly films everything. And imagine you sort of made a reality TV show out of surveillance footage that people had taken of their community. How does that tickle you? Do you like it?
Sounds like Black Mirror to me.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
It's actually a real thing. It's called Ring Nation, and it's been described as extremely dystopian, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It's crazy. I'm looking at this article now,
Yeah.
and we'll chuck the link to this article in the description or whatever. But yeah, this is insane. So there's just going to be this surveillance network that they're taking footage from, and then they're going to get Wanda Sykes to do like commentary and voiceover. It's so crazy. Like, I've seen on social media some like funny Ring videos. Like, you'll see like a wasp come in and like fly into the camera.
You see stuff on like,
and it's like America's funniest home videos, kind of.
sure.
That's the feeling, and I get that that's what they're jumping on, but also it's terrifying.
Yeah. It's like, it's okay for there to occasionally be some stuff out there. You look at it, you don't think about it, whatever. It's on whatever your social media feed is. You see the video. But like, the person who was like, what if we took all of this, like what is literally surveillance footage, and turned that into like a reality TV show?
That'd be funny. That'd be funny.
Insane.
Yeah.
It just goes to show like how desensitized people are to the sort of ubiquitous surveillance state that we kind of live in now, and like how tone deaf companies like Amazon are to this. To think that like you could pitch that to people without there being a lot of people who are like, this is,
and they're just like, green light.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
All right, I think that is going to wrap us up for the first episode of the Session Tapes. Thank you for tuning in. It's been a great one. And let us know what you think of this format as well.
Yeah, I know feedback. We want to hear it.
Yeah, we had a good time. So we are excited to see what all of you think, and also what do you think about the issues that we brought up today. I think they're
for sure.
all pretty interesting. So yeah, and until next time.
Adios.
See ya.
Not bad.